Good morning. Happy Halloween, blessed shaman. I'm being mindful of the thinness of the veil between those of us who are alive and on the planet and those of us who have departed. I was in the hot tub earlier this morning outside, and there was a beautiful female cardinal singing her head off beside us. So just, those reminders from nature are all around us, but maybe particularly today. So as promised, I'm going to talk a little bit about dark empaths, and there is some overlap between what is a dark empath and what and someone who's an energy vampire. These aren't technical terms. And I am being a little bit lighthearted because it's Halloween. But I do think that in the cultural zeitgeist, we're fascinated by dark energy archetypes. And I believe, that there are archetypes um, underlying energy vampires or dark empaths. Dark empaths can very much be and carry and have a wounded healer archetype. So I've heard different and other explanations about what is a dark empath. Here's what I have observed and the way that I have characterized this. I have no idea what's going on with the changing light here. It must be the camera. I'm sorry. I don't know what's going on. Um, an empath generally isn't just someone who is able to take someone else's perspective or feel with someone, right? I was sitting with a client yesterday who struggles with anxiety, and I could feel the constriction in her chest as she was talking about it. So there is this idea that a dark empath is someone only has capacity for cognitive empathy or only has capacity to kind of rationalize or intellectualize what someone else is experiencing. Okay, we'll incorporate that, right? But I think a dark empath is also that someone who has those narcissistic tendencies to mirror. So they're not identifying with you if they seem to be having empathy. They're not going into a shared emotional space. They're seeing their own experiencing in you, or they're witnessing their own suffering in you. All right. And similar to energy vampires, they may be somewhat predatory or vampiric, or they like the word that keeps coming to my head is piranha, right? They're feeding off your pain, right? I have experienced this. I have experienced highly narcissistic people appearing to really give a shit about me when all they were really doing was getting information and intel. And I'm sure some of you have experienced that as well. So there is a narcissistic underpinning, right? And there's a correlation sometimes with spiritual narcissism and dark empaths. So if someone, is before you, whether individually in a group setting, in a class, in a workshop, in a on a stage in front of tens of thousands of people, they've never met you, but they purport to understand your pain and your suffering, that's a flag. That's a huge flag. And I think this conversation is an important one to be having right now. Dark empathy can be used in sales situations, right? This whole concept of zeroing in on someone's pain point as a way of influencing their decision making. This stuff makes me feel sick, right? Like I've learned it and I'm not comfortable with it. So, another manifestation of a dark empath is more of what we would clinically refer to as a borderline personality disorder. And I've had this experience as well. I think people who would meet that criteria or who have those traits of being highly, highly sensitive, but also highly internally reactive, for the same reasons of any empath. These are people who've had to read the room, they've had to interpret their environment, they've had to do mind reading, they've had to feel the energy of a highly abusive person. And where many empaths want to fix that and make it better, in that more borderline presentation, it is a pure safety behavior. And the perceptions are skewed by their own internal emotional reactivity. This is also true for narcissists, right? How can you really have empathy if your central nervous system is dysregulated all the time? That's going to completely run interference with the neurobiological ability to have empathy, right? Just taking all the woo woo out of it. Empathy as a cognitive mechanism lives, in the prefrontal cortex, roughly. So if you're upset or dysregulated or in states of defensiveness, you're not going to be able to have genuine empathy. But dark empaths believe that they can feel other people's pain, but it's really their own. It's really their own coming back at them. They lack the skill of discernment, of presence, and of being able to safely and with boundaries go into a shared emotional space. Just letting that sit for a moment. Dark empaths are highly wounded individuals. They, I think, absolutely can pick up on nuances of expression, body language. I think there's mind reading that happens, right? And I know that if I am working with someone as a client and I sense this, I am very, very careful to take care of my own energy and try to build as much safety with that person as I possibly can. When I was teaching counseling, I would talk about how you can encounter people where you're saying something but they are hearing something entirely different. And that can be something that's experienced by those whom we would refer to as a dark empath. So they can have all of that early survival mechanism capacity to get extra information from people, but it is influenced by their emotional reactivity and defensiveness, and it may not be used in an attuned connection kind of way. So obviously empathy drives connection, right? Channeling my inner Brene Brown. But dark empaths move into disconnection, or they connect temporarily but will disconnect eventually, right? So hopefully this makes sense. um Please like, subscribe, find me at Stacy Sanderson at Inquire Within on the socials. Stay in the conversation. This is one of my favorite topics. I am having a little fun because it's Halloween and it's one of my favorite days of the year. Let me know what you think and get in the conversation. Happy Halloween, and I hope you have a great day here in Southern Ontario. It's very warm. And I will see you, or you'll see me, I guess, the next time we meet.